royal family's biggest hidden weapon was never William, never Harry, but a quiet teenager the palace intentionally kept away from the cameras until the exact moment the monarchy became desperate for a new future. Because behind the polished smiles, the balcony waves, and the endless royal scandals, another name has suddenly exploded through Buckingham Palace corridors like a ticking time bomb: James Alexander Philip Theo Mountbatten Windsor. And now insiders are whispering something that sounds almost unthinkable. The forgotten grandson of Prince Philip may finally be stepping into the royal identity the monarchy tried to hide from the world for nearly 2 decades. For years, James Alexander existed like a royal ghost, hidden in plain sight. Technically inside the monarchy, but emotionally outside of it. No screaming headlines, no paparazzi obsession, no royal war documentaries built around his name. While William and Harry were raised under brutal global scrutiny, James was quietly pushed towards something dangerously unusual for a Windsor: normality. And that decision now looks far more explosive than anyone realized at the time. Because royal bloodlines never stay buried forever. Eventually the system remembers who belongs to it. Eventually the palace comes calling. James was not some distant royal cousin floating around the edges of history. He was born 8th in line to the throne. 8th. That is not insignificant. That is direct proximity to royal power. Yet despite being the grandson of Prince Philip and Queen Elizabeth II and nephew to King Charles III himself, he was raised almost like the monarchy hoped people would forget he existed altogether. Royal watchers now believe that silence may have been deliberate, too deliberate, because the less attention James received, the less pressure existed around the shocking legal reality tied to his name. His father, Prince Edward, once described him publicly as very cute and very cuddly. Soft words, innocent words, but behind those harmless comments was a radical royal experiment unfolding quietly inside Bagshot Park. While William and Harry trained for royal survival, James was attending ordinary school events, sleeping over at friends' houses, celebrating birthdays without worldwide media hysteria, and living a life almost completely disconnected from the suffocating machine of monarchy. Sophie openly admitted they wanted their children raised with the understanding they may actually need normal jobs one day. Imagine hearing that inside the most famous royal family on earth. It sounded almost rebellious, but the monarchy has a terrifying habit. It always circles back to bloodline. Always. And suddenly, after years of obscurity, James Alexander became the center of a constitutional conversation nobody could ignore anymore. Because here's the part most people completely misunderstood. James did not suddenly become a prince at 18. According to the 1917 letters patent established by King George V, he was already one from birth. Legally, constitutionally, automatically, Prince James of Wessex, now Prince James of Edinburgh. The title existed the entire time like a hidden crown sitting untouched in darkness. That revelation alone sent royal commentators spiraling. Because if James was legally entitled to the title all along, then the palace wasn't denying him royalty, they were suppressing visibility of it, quietly shelving it, not revoking it, not stripping it away, just keeping it hidden while the monarchy tried to modernize itself without another royal figure complicating the public image. Suddenly, the normal childhood story started sounding less innocent and more strategic, almost like Buckingham Palace feared what another young prince could represent during an era already collapsing under scandal, betrayal, and public distrust. Then came the date insiders were obsessing over for years, December 17th, 2025. The moment James turned 18. The moment the decision officially became his. And suddenly, palace whispers intensified overnight. Would he claim the prince title? Would he reject it like his sister Louise? Or would he become something even more dangerous to the monarchy's carefully controlled future, a fresh royal figure the public actually likes? Because this story is not really about titles. It is about Prince Philip's shadow, and that shadow is enormous. James literally carries Philip's name inside his own identity. James Alexander Philip Theo. That middle name was not decoration, it was legacy. Royal insiders are now pointing toward eerie parallels that feel almost symbolic. Philip was 18 when destiny first dragged him toward Queen Elizabeth. James has now reached the exact same age, carrying the same bloodline during another unstable royal era. Coincidence? Palace loyalists are no longer sure. And James did not stay completely disconnected from royal duty either. The public simply overlooked the signs. He attended Prince Philip's funeral. He stood at Queen Elizabeth's vigil at just 14 years old with a calmness that stunned observers. He appeared during King Charles's coronation. He stood on the Buckingham Palace balcony repeatedly over the years without visible fear, panic, or resentment. Quietly. quietly, calmly, like someone who had been raised away from the spotlight, but somehow born to survive it anyway. Now the monarchy faces a contradiction it can no longer hide. King Charles wanted a slimmed-down monarchy, smaller, cleaner, fewer working royals. But then Harry left. Meghan detonated chaos from California. Andrew became radioactive. Catherine's health struggles shook public confidence. Suddenly, the monarchy began looking dangerously understaffed. And right there in the shadows stood James Alexander, young, scandal-free, educated, carrying Philip's bloodline untouched by public exhaustion. Royal insiders claim even Prince William sees potential in him now. And that changes everything. The most explosive part? James does not even need to officially become a working royal to shift the monarchy's future. His existence alone already disrupts the narrative. He represents something the royal family has lost for years: mystery, authenticity. A royal figure who wasn't overexposed, overmanaged, or publicly destroyed before adulthood. In many ways, the palace accidentally created the perfect modern prince by trying so hard to avoid creating one at all. What makes this entire situation feel so explosive is that James Alexander is emerging at the exact moment the monarchy looks emotionally exhausted, politically fragile, and frighteningly uncertain about its own future. Behind palace walls, senior royals are aging, public trust keeps swinging wildly with every scandal, and the so-called slimmed-down monarchy now appears dangerously overstretched. William and Catherine are carrying enormous pressure. King Charles is trying to protect stability while fighting constant public scrutiny. Harry is gone. Andrew is untouchable. And suddenly, from the shadows arrives a young royal figure nobody expected to matter this much. That is why insiders reportedly became obsessed with comparing James to his sister Louise. Because when Lady Louise turned 18, she quietly refused the French title and chose a private existence instead. The palace almost breathed a sigh of relief. No new royal complications, no new headlines, no extra pressure on Charles's modern monarchy plan. But James feels different. Even royal commentators admitted that. Louise entered adulthood during a relatively controlled period. James is entering adulthood during what many insiders privately describe as a royal survival era. And then came the whispers surrounding Prince William. Reports began circulating that William allegedly sees both Louise and James as potentially valuable future working royals once he eventually becomes king. That rumor alone changed how people viewed James overnight, because suddenly the forgotten grandson no longer looked like an irrelevant royal cousin. He looked like a possible backup plan for the future crown itself, a reserve figure, a stabilizer, a new generation Windsor untouched by the chaos that destroyed public confidence in others. The contradiction here is almost impossible to ignore. The monarchy spent years pretending it wanted fewer royals, while quietly depending more and more on the remaining ones to hold the institution together. That contradiction is now exposing cracks everywhere. Every balcony appearance matters more. Every public engagement matters more. Every healthy, scandal-free royal suddenly becomes incredibly valuable. And James Alexander fits that profile almost perfectly. Young, reserved, educated, connected to Philip's legacy, uncontroversial, raised outside the toxic machinery that consumed Harry and William for decades. It almost sounds too perfect, which is exactly why people inside royal circles are watching him so carefully now. What truly shocked observers, though, were the moments proving James was never as disconnected from royal life as people assumed. The clearest example came during Queen Elizabeth II's mourning period in 2022. At just 14 years old, James stood vigil beside the late Queen's coffin in Westminster Hall. 14. Most teenagers that age struggle through ordinary school pressure. Yet James stood inside one of the most emotionally historic royal moments in modern British history, with calm discipline that reportedly stunned even palace insiders. Sophie later admitted she initially worried he might be too young, but he handled it with composure that many older royals would struggle to fake. Then came King Charles's coronation, another symbolic moment, another reminder that James kept appearing closer and closer to the monarchy's center whenever history unfolded. And suddenly, royal analysts started asking uncomfortable questions. Was this really still a private royal child being kept away from monarchy life? Or had Buckingham Palace quietly been preparing James all along without the public realizing it? Because the pattern now looks impossible to ignore. Funeral, vigil, coronation, balcony appearances, national ceremonies. Each moment pushed him slightly further into public consciousness, slowly, carefully, strategically. Now the speculation is becoming even louder. Some believe James could eventually support initiatives connected to Prince Philip's Duke of Edinburgh Award program, creating a bridge between his private upbringing and limited royal responsibilities. Others think he may continue avoiding titles publicly while still becoming one of the monarchy's most important hidden figures behind the scenes. But here's the terrifying truth Buckingham Palace cannot escape anymore. No matter what James chooses, he matters now. Because the public has become fascinated by what he represents. A royal raised outside the machine, a prince who grew up almost ordinary, a grandson carrying Prince Philip's bloodline without carrying decades of scandal. And in today's monarchy, that combination is incredibly dangerous because it creates hope. The kind of hope royal institutions desperately need during unstable times. But silence inside royal families is rarely accidental. And the deeper people investigate James Alexander's story, the more unsettling the bigger question becomes. Did Edward and Sophie truly protect their son from royal life, or did they quietly preserve him for the exact moment the monarchy would need him most? Because now that he has turned 18, the hidden door Prince Philip's grandson stood beside his entire life is finally open. And Buckingham Palace may already know something the public is only beginning to realize. Once a Windsor finally steps out of the shadows, the monarchy is never the same again.